We are mucus free. We are mucus free. We are mucus free.
We are mucus free. What is going on, brothers and sisters? Welcome to the Mucus Free Life podcast. And I'm the one, the only Professor Spira, and I'm here with a very, very, very important, very special episode today. In a moment, I'm going to bring on my good friend Johnny Gonzalez, and we're going to be talking about some issues going on with him and his family and his child, and you do not want to miss this very, very important discussion. But it's great to be here. I'm very happy to have you here. Thank you so much for plugging in. And a lot of stuff going on out there. This is an interesting time to be alive. It's a rough time to be a child. And that's going to be our theme for today. And you've seen, I've talked about the face mask mandates for children, and they're putting children in boxes in some places, and it's just this madness. And I'm seeing videos where people trying to put face masks on like babies' faces and stuff. It's just absolutely insane. And we have to begin to resist. And so that's been the hardest thing, one of the hardest things for me to watch. It's not that these kind of draconian policies are being put into place in this totalitarian. There's reasons why you study and read things like 1984 and Brave New World. We're supposed to prepare and assume that this is coming. So I'm not surprised that any of this stuff is happening. And you shouldn't be surprised if you were studying. But now that it's here, we were supposed to be better prepared and ready to resist. Well, now people are starting to take things a little bit more serious and say, hey, wait a minute, you're going to permanently take my job away? See, people didn't resist when it was like, well, you take my job for a year. Now you've got to take it away permanently if I don't go get a procedure that I shouldn't have to share with you if I got it or didn't get it. That's none of your employer's business. That's none of the government's business, but yet here we are. And so now we're finally starting to see a little bit of resistance. Okay, all right. Hopefully it's not too little too late. We can, for them, we can go with that. But for the rest of us is practicing the Mucusless Diet Healing System and into plant-based healing lifestyles, we have to continue to come together, continue to support each other, continue to put our plans in place, because we're going to be up against some pure insanity. And to really be ready, don't think that people keep saying, oh, we're going to go back to normal. Want things to go back to normal. Maybe if I just get the jab, we can go back to it's not happening. They're not going to, once they take power away, they don't give it back. And so don't even hope for that. That's not how this thing works. And so very important, stay up to date, stay watching out. Like I've been saying, what happens when they show up at your door with a syringe in one hand and a gun in the other? People thought that was hyperbole when I was saying it a year ago. And now there's places in the world where that has been happening for real. And so what will you do when they come to your door? And maybe it don't show up at your door. Maybe it'll be you no longer have a job. You no longer have a way to make a living. You can't get gasoline. How about that? You can't get gasoline unless you submit a documentation. Show your papers. You can't get groceries unless you show your papers at the door or have them scan your iris or your whatever little microchip or whatever dystopian way of tracking. All that technology all exists, and some places are already doing stuff like that. Take your pick. The thing is, these things are much less likely to happen and to persist when there is enough resistance. When people are sitting back quiet or trying to be a pacifist and just trying to, well, this is all going in downstairs in the basement and trying to pray and meditate and that kind of stuff. That's not what the dystopian world is about. That's not what the pus and mucus based reality is about. You got to be ready to defend yourself and your loved ones from these sick pus eating psychopaths out here. And you got to take that seriously, because if you don't, then it's all over. So on that upbeat and happy note, no, but I mean, I know you guys hear me to say this lots of times, but it's just something I'm not seeing enough other people saying this, and I'm not seeing enough people getting prepared. People aren't mad enough. People aren't resisting. There's this like I call it the United States of apathy, this real apathetic type of thing that I'm seeing, and it's just the way that people act and the way that people think, and it's just this very like ho hum, what woe is me, or I can't do anything about it. I'm just me. I'm just one person. I can't do anything. It's like, and that's what they want. When you think like that, that's how they win, is because we got to do better than that. It's not just about I'm just one person and this is such a big government situation. Like, no, it's about an attitude of not backing down, not turning over. I'm not going to bend over and let them jab anything anywhere near my cheeks, any of my skin. There is going to be no jab going in anywhere, over my dead body. And it's like that. And if it comes to that, then so be it. People don't like, people want me, they like it when we have these high, intellectual, spiritual conversations and that kind of stuff. And that's all well and good. There's a place for that. But, Brother Air come in, he'd be like, look, if it's about physiological liberation, or as he said, cleaning that ass and cleaning yourself up, all of the fancy spiritual dogmatic discussions don't mean nothing if you're not cleaning yourself up and then taking the steps necessary to educate yourself and defend yourself against these totalitarian pus-based regimes. And so that's why I have to just a PSA, public service announcement by Professor Spira. And one more announcement before I bring Johnny on. I have a live webinar coming up next week, next Tuesday, from the time of recording this, next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Burn fat and create godlike immunity, eating mucus-free in the COVID era. So I'm getting into stuff that I can't talk about on YouTube, stuff they yank off of Facebook. We're going to get real deep into some of these topics that they don't want us to talk about. And so this is a free event. Like I said, I like this, and so much of what we do is going to have to more and more go into the private spaces, these decentralized spaces away from the Facebooks and the Instagrams and the YouTubes. We can start here because sometimes we can connect for the first time on these platforms. So until they get rid of me, I'm going to be here. But we have to quickly get off of, meet each other. Like, hey, I'm glad you came here. If you're new to the channel, click subscribe, hit the like button, but sign up for for my mailing list so that we can begin to have real conversations off of this platform, since this platform is censoring everybody. They're censoring famous people with money and power. So what are they going to do? I mean, they're taking down folks, millions viewers, and they start talking about procedure hesitancy and all these. I can't even use the V word because they might take it down. Now, if they did, okay, we move on. I'm not scared. I could, this is this is a service. This is trying to be able to reach out and help more people. And I know that this is a medium and a space where that can happen. But it's getting crazy. It's definitely getting really bizarre out here in bizarro world. So I'm going to drop the link to the webinar in the chat here very quickly. So yeah, hit that link, sign up, register. As we only really have a few spots left. We got quite a few people have registered already, so you don't want to miss this webinar. So now, without any further ado, I would like to introduce you to Johnny Gonzalez, who has been a personal fitness trainer on the highest levels for over 25 years, detoxification specialist, practitioner of the Mucusless Diet Healing System for a number of years. We had him as a featured speaker on the second annual Professor Arnold Ehret Day celebration in 2019. Give it up for my man, Johnny Gonzalez.
Nice. Professor Spira, thank you for the intro.
Yeah,
so glad that we were able to link up and get this story out. I mean, we've been talking about it for a while. You've been in the loop since the beginning, and the further along that this has been happening, the more that has been revealed to me as a parent, and along with that, a law sayer. Because when you're involved with something like this, you have to figure out and know and understand what's happening. So you're going to need to go to the books. You're going to need to discover on your own how something like this could happen, and it be taken lightly from a government perspective.
Right.
So today's overall message is just to tell the people what's going on, how this occurred, why this occurred, and connect the dots with the Mucusless Diet System, because our world is run by pus eaters, and everyone who listens to you should already know that by now. You and Brother Ehret speak so openly, and along with that, we can't expect change when we're eating the same way they're eating. And this is what has really kind of just connected pieces to the puzzle to be where I'm at today, despite everything that has been going on. So maybe we should just kind of start from the beginning.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned earlier, this happened. All of this occurrence started when I started to make the transition over to a healthy diet, predominantly fruits, green leaf vegetations, fasting, doing enemas, sunbathing, doing ice baths, doing things that, as you discover health, you at that point realize, well, a lot of the habits that I've had my whole life, they're incorrect. So those modifications sometimes rub off differently to people, and it makes it difficult for both parties. So if you have a family member who's changing their diet and eating healthy, and then they're going to events with their family, they feel as if they're an outcast. But then you also have it on the flip side, where the rest of the family is kind of outcasting you for you making a difference in your life. So
right.
So this is why we got to backtrack to the beginning. And the beginning was, as I was making the transition, I already had 3 kids at the time.
Well, even before that, so give them that history. I was trying to look up your old pictures. So you used to be like a bodybuilder. You was real serious about that whole lifestyle, and then you kind of got to a point you were really having trouble digesting food naturally, as a lot of folks that are in that lifestyle because of the high so-called protein. It's just high animal product, high stimulants type of stuff. And so you were, so tell us a little bit about that experience, and then how you found the Mucusless diet and started to, transition yourself out of that world.
Yeah, definitely. So I grew up an athlete, and as an athlete, we train and we eat as much as we can. The goal at that point in my life was about getting bigger, getting stronger, focusing primarily on the physical body and the ego. But despite how well I looked, I was 205 and I looked like a Greek statue and it didn't mean anything because my health was so bad at the time. So it put me in a position where I kind of put up with symptoms. And I kept doing it until finally I wasn't able to put up with it anymore. And at this point, I found myself in the hospital regularly. I found myself on a bunch of medications, and there was not a solution. And not once was I ever told, you need to change your diet. If you change your diet, a lot of these things would subside and you'll find a remedy. But that never happened. So it took me to hit rock bottom to literally be on my deathbed, because at the time I had formed blood clots in my leg. I was not walking. I was bedridden. And at that point in my life, I was just like, I got to take matters into my own hand. So I found the Mucusless Diet Healing System.
Yeah.
But the first read, literally, I read the book and I was like, oh, okay, so I guess I got to eat less meat. That's all I took from it. And so that kind of opened me up to maybe I'm going to give up meat a little bit more. And then it kind of just gradually, I started to experience myself changing. But at the time it was mentally changing. And I have this argument with people regularly. I said, when you eat meat, there's a lot of psychological issues that you're intaking from the karma of a dead animal. An animal that's suffering, that's crying, that feels pain, that's releasing adrenaline into the body, and then they're murdered, and then that is taken to the factories and whatnot, and we're eating that, and we get that stimulant, and we think that that's real, like that gives us power. And to be honest, that's the highest form of drug that you could possibly take, is ingesting another person's adrenaline from the bloodstream.
Right.
So that's when I started to make, altering my lifestyle a little bit. And 2015 is when I really I've given a meat for this long, and I just never went back at that point. And I just started, all my symptoms went away. My mental health did a 180. I got more gentle. And I kind of, I emphasize that because when you're making transitions in your life, you got to realize that your mind is equally damaged. So you could be hard on yourself. You can, you could put yourself in a position where you're still hurting yourself mentally. So, it's just a matter of, when you're looking for health and you're looking, to stop the negative thoughts, the fear, the anger, all of that connects with what you're putting in your body. And I learned that I had that first experience that it just stayed with me from that point on. I was never able to go back. I was never the same person, but it opened so many other pathways of who I am today that I really, words can't describe how grateful I am, regardless of what's happening and what's going on. So, at that point, I had already had kids. So when I was making these transitions, of course, as a parent, you're going to have some influence over your kids. And at the time, in my county, there was only, even till today, there's maybe a handful of vegans in a maybe 200,000 populated area.
Right.
So you're going to be viewed, or a lot of the stuff that I was saying and doing, it wasn't recognized as normal. And because of that, I took a lot of backlash. And when my kids were involved with it, something simple as having fruit for breakfast, I was already getting knocks on my door from CPS because of that.
Wow.
Because we're eating outside in the grass, knock on the door, CPS. And that kind of, that happened prior to my son, my youngest son, Journey, being born. So at that point, it didn't register. I just thought, okay, well, they're coming. Someone did a call. They're complaining. They're going to check it, whatever. And I just brushed it under the carpet. Didn't really even consider it. But as I found out, as all this happened with Journey, it all kind of added up together. So when Journey was born, I already knew, I was already 4 years into the game. And I have confidence in the system. I have confidence in the knowledge that I've obtained as a detoxification specialist, to know the body, to know the systems, to know how they operate, to identify symptomology. And there was a sense of, working with people at this point that I wasn't uncertain of myself. So when we had Journey, I decided, we're gonna have a home birth. We're gonna have him at home. At that point in my life, I was like, we're not gonna get no birth certificate, no social security. And this is before I even figured things out. At that point, again, It was just that was a personal choice. The very first day that he was born, the very next day, CPS is at my door. So at this point, it was like, okay, how is this even? We haven't even publicly, made announcements or anything. And so this is where I started to, question, who's behind this? It's got to be someone close. It's got to be someone that has the insight of my life on a very personal level. So before, from August 1st of 2019, oh no, I'm sorry, from Journey's birth, 10 months later, we probably had encounterments with CPS for his weight, for people calling because he's naked in a stroller. I mean, the most ridiculous things. He's sunbathing. It was just, the petty stuff that somebody has to be suffering and filled with mucus and pus and constipated to have to go out and directly attack someone who's living their own life. I'm not even going to say living a better life or a worse life. I'm just saying living their own life. Yeah. And has to jump in and interfere and cause commotion for their gratification. So, we dealt with that. We dealt with that all the way through. And it was just ongoing. It was just ongoing. So when this all happened, this incident occurred August 1st of 2020. We were heading down south for a weekend vacation for our son's birthday, and we arrived in Costa Mesa. We did a little shopping, had some dinner. We went back to the hotel that evening, a Friday evening, and got situated for bed. Journey was on the bed playing with toys, just there, just relaxing, and lays down, dozes off, and goes to sleep. Well, the next morning, we awake, and I'm downstairs exercising with his siblings, and his mother Jacqueline comes down carrying Journey and says, "Hey, come check Journey out." So I go, I look at him, and he's just really lethargic. He had a resemblance of just being I mean, I guess the best way I could describe it is like drunk. You know, if someone's they're just out and they're present, you could tell that they're breathing and they're there, but they're just not really, they don't have that full cognitive of thought. So take them upstairs, you know, we're discussing the situation, and you know, mother's instinct kicked in right away for her, and she's like, you know, we got to take him to the emergency room. And, you know, my first thoughts when that was said, I was like, hell no, that's not going to happen. But being that we had his siblings with us, it was in a position of, you know, let's just head that way and see if he can't if he can't just, you know, snap out of it on his own. So we make that drive over there, and, you know, on the way we're trying to communicate with him. She's trying to talk with him. And, you know, it's just emotional. And we get there, and I just remember the last things that I said was, you know, if we go in here, we don't have control anymore. So again, I'm speaking now from looking back. Looking back, it was a moment of fear. Despite everything that I knew, despite that, I even at that point, to this day, I still have the same diagnostic of what was going on with him. That hasn't changed. But it was just so... I just, the best way I can say is I got a second of fear in me, and I just carried him into the emergency room and allowed them to, you know, and do their analysis of him. I stood there by his side the whole time, and at that beginning stage, they administered to him basically a sugar shot, because his glucose level was extremely low. So when that occurred, they gave him the sugar shot. His awareness started to pick up a little bit. You could tell he was moving his body a little bit more. His eyes were moving a little bit more, and they wanted to do further testing. Now, because it was during the time of COVID, they only allowed one of us to be present at the time. So while I was with Journey, Mother was discussing, you know, his diet, his history, what was, you know, what happened leading up to. And they took all those notes and that information. And, you know, they did a full analysis. They did a full analysis of him. They ran a bunch of tests. So what ended up happening was, because we were in an emergency room, they recommended that we go to a children's hospital, which we went to Chalk Hospital. Now, because of the transfer, they had to do an ambulance transfer. They had told us that they were going to administer a breathing apparatus on his mouth so that he was able to breathe just in case something were to happen, as a precautionary reasonings. So Mother goes with him on the ambulance. I go with the siblings. And maybe about 2 hours later, Jackie's contacting me saying, hey, you know, a CPS investigator's here with an officer, and they're asking me a bunch of questions about what's going on and what's happening. And I was like, are you serious? Like, okay, well, just, you know, tell them what happened. I mean, we don't got nothing to hide. So, you know, during that time frame, I was just a waiting game. That evening, CPS and an officer came to the hotel that we were staying at, interviewed me, interviewed his siblings, and basically just did their thing, up and left. Well, find out the very next day they detained him in the hospital, and a temporary order was set for the upcoming Thursday. So that happened on Sunday, so we didn't see him for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. He was by himself in a hospital, left alone, based off of there's no facts or findings at this point. There's no conclusions. There's nothing that's, you know, saying, oh, we have a firsthand witness that you harmed your kid or you did this. There was none of that. They just took him. So when that happened, you know, the ghetto part kicked in. of course. And I was ready to fight. I'm looking for heads at that point. At the same time, I was thinking like, well, how is this happening? Like, how can they just take him? And I remember asking the doctors, you know, he didn't have a birth certificate. How does the state come in and just take him like that? Like, how can that be? Like, how can that be happening? So I ended up reaching out to Dr. Morris and his team in Florida, who they linked me up with an individual named Chad who went through something very similar. You know, he refused chemo for his son, and they ended up taking him. And so he had a kind of a background about all of this, and he kind of assisted me about explaining the process of what was happening and kind of just prepared me for what was about to happen. So at that point, I was declining all of the medical procedures that they were wanting to do on him, all of the medications, all of the experimental, you know, measures that they believe in. And I said, no, they wanted a blood transfusion. They wanted to do this CT scan, CAT scan, MRI. I mean, inject him with this, put this medication on him. And I declined everything. But the hospital said that CPS has taken away your medical decision-making rights. And CPS now holds that to decide for them what is the best interest for your child. So, you know, this is where at that point they took away our visitations. We were only allowed to see him an hour a day. And this occurred for the next 3 weeks. But in those 3 weeks, we had conversations and we discussed different, you know, I wanted explanations. I wanted to know what was happening. But at the same time, I wanted to protect him because at that current position in time, they were saying that he was going to die. You know, we have documentation of the nurses' writings, the doctor's findings, and saying, you know what, he's not going to make it. If we take this breathing tube off of him, he's going to die. They were having priests come in. They were having all of their specialty, you know, comfort individuals who kind of prepare people for the passing over of a loved one. And I remember everybody that came in, I'm like, what are you like? I appreciate the effort that you guys are making, but my son's going to be fine. Like, why? Like, how can you say all this and do all this when he's still here and he's still breathing? He's still, you know, opening his eyes and he's still, you know, he's still fighting. So along with that, you know, I have to emphasize this. Before any of this, he never had any contact with any form of medication, any form of radiation whatsoever. And from the time frame of that Saturday that he was with mom majority of the day, and the next day when I saw him, his whole face, arms, hands, feet, his whole body was completely swollen, edema all the way through the whole entire body. So I knew that had more harm on him than anything else. But along with that, the medications that he was on, neurological suppressors, muscle relaxers, all sedatives, all medications that are putting him in a downer. So he's becoming less active. But that doesn't go into consideration of his overall condition, because their diagnosis of him was that he had suffered irreversible brain damage due to malnutrition. That was their go-to of saying that, well, because he wasn't eating dairy and because he wasn't consuming other products besides fruits and vegetation, that he was malnourished. He didn't have enough calories. He didn't have enough protein. That was their go-to. He didn't have enough protein. And during this time, I'm there as a parent. I didn't turn into a detoxification specialist until they stopped allowing me to make decisions about my own son. And when that occurred, that's when I was like, no, this is what's happening. These are the conditions and symptoms he's experiencing. These are the herbs that he should be taking. These medical procedures that you're doing, they're pointless. They're only making the situation worse. And basically, I was, blacklisted at that point. At that point, I had a supervised babysitter watching me see my own son. And every doctor cringed every time they had to come in to deal with me. But again, it's based off of what they're taught and what they know and what they believe. But if you really look into Western medicine, you gotta think logically and put this together. They don't know what the hell they're doing. And it's apparent by the deaths, by the suffering of humanity, by the addiction to medication and pharmaceuticals. Not to mention they're profiting from all of this. They get incentives. Okay, so if that doesn't ring a bell for people to comprehend that, I don't know what else will. So this all kind of just continued. We had supervised visitations. We were back and forth with trying to talk to supervisors and explain to us how they took him, why they detained him, without due process of law, without being in front of a peer of our, without being in front of a jury of our peers to determine that, we did wrong. And it should be you're innocent until proven guilty. That's not how it works, though. Not in these administrative proceedings. So they take him, they do all this, and then all of a sudden we get these CPS reports that basically are saying what they believe. I believe this happened. I believe this. I believe that. Malnutrition, protein deficiency, starvation, et cetera, et cetera. So when they were doing their investigation, they went back to Tulare County where I reside, and they got up all the CPS reports about me fasting my kids, me giving my kids fruit for breakfast, me doing ice baths and sunbathing, all of the holistic approaches to a lifestyle that was now used against me. Living a style of a vegan lifestyle now became incriminating. And that occurred August 27th. On our way to a visit, I pull up to the hospital. Since, again, one visit at a time. So I went first. Mother went to go park the car. I walk into the hospital, check in. Surprise, surprise. You have undercover cops waiting in there. Arrested me right on the spot in the hospital. Handcuffed me to walk me outside, threw me to the curb. I'm just sitting there like I'm just some criminal, right? They pull up, have mother in the back seat. Put us in there, hauled us to jail, baby. Took us to jail. So I remember that drive because I told her, I said, you know what? Just don't even feel nothing right now. Don't take this. We can't. We don't need to waste. We don't need to waste our energy on this. This is just showing firsthand how the dark. I look at it like a moth. Like a moth is attracted to the light. Those sacrifice their life just to get to that. And at the same time, when you're shining, you're going to attract things. And you're going to attract the darkness that's going to come to try to pull you back down to the level where they want to keep you in control. I was fortunate enough to talk to an individual who went through something very similar. And, him and his wife had their baby raw taken from them. And I remember having a conversation with him, and he told me that he had brought a light bulb that came on in my head about the fact that, we have auras. Each of us has our own unique aura. And when we're shining more, remember, this is the aura. We can't really see this, but the dark forces that control the world, they know this, and they're going to go after these people of light and these children of light, and they're going to try to bring them back down. And this is all about that control that they have over humanity, and they keep us indoctrinated with false information, false education, half truths, no truths, and they keep us in the dark because they don't want us to experience the uniqueness of, you know, of that divinity of the God power within all of us. We all have that. So as you start to clean the body up, that light emits, and it's you're shining. So at this point, you know, I recognize what was occurring, because I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, I was stressed or worried or sad because of, you know, what was happening. But at the same time, I was like, you know what? I can't be there with my son. That was my biggest thing with it. I can't be there with him. They're going to do whatever they're going to do. And it was just so overwhelming. But even from that beginning state, I was like, you know, I can't mentally lose myself over what's happening, because sooner or later we're gonna resolve this. And I've carried that with me this whole time. And, you know, Mother could vouch for me, because we were polar opposites. She fell completely down to the pits of hell, and the fear consumed her. So we've been battling, you know, this with one another to try to merge back together, because when something like this happens to a family, it rips you apart. And, you know, as we continue the story, we're going to find out real quick how much it ripped the family apart. So, you know, we ended up, she was in jail for 4 days. I stayed in jail for 12 days. They charged us with felony counts, and it basically led us to, you know, we got to find out how we're going to beat this. You know, now we're looking to serve 16 years for being vegans, for consuming fruit juice, for you know, sunbathing.
Now, what is the actual charges?
The actual charges are felony, a felony charge of child endangerment, a felony charge of child abuse. And then we got enhancements, which is willful neglect, which means that you willfully did something to someone to cause them harm. So they charged us with that enhancement, saying that we willfully did this to Journey knowingly. So, you know, that led us to be, you know, in a position where, you know, we're being prosecuted. And, you know, this is where now we got to step into the law system. Now we got to step into what's actually happening and what's actually going on. Because as I found out real quick, this is a very common thing. You know, I'm involved in some groups that, you know, you got tens of thousands of people that are dealing with situations similar to this, dealing with newborns, dealing with, you know, hearsay allegations, things that are, someone else said that this happened, so we're going to say that it's true. So we're going to go and we're going to take your kids because, you know, grandma or grandpa called CPS because there was a little dispute between mom and dad. And that basically is, you know, what CPS had done is they fabricated so much evidence. They got in contact with individuals who were opposed to my diet and lifestyle choice and voiced their opinion. And they just wrote down the worst of the worst, made all these reports up, used that as evidence against us. And I point this out because it has a lot of relevance, because typically when someone gets into any type of legal issues or problems or confrontations, the first thing that we're taught and told to do is seek out counsel. You got to get an attorney. You got to lawyer up. Otherwise, you're going to go to jail. Otherwise, you know, you're going to lose everything. But that can't be the furthest from the fucking truth. This is where you go down a rabbit hole. And I mean, we're going to be fortunate enough to have an individual come on named Big Ed, who has been helping me through this. And this guy he's a law textbook. I mean, he's been studying constitutional law for 50 years. He's one of the most impressive minds that I've encountered. And, you know, to be honest with you, I got 4 guys. I got 4 guys. Daniel from the House of Prayers, David from How to Win in Court Without a Liar, and then Ed and his partner Chris. And these individuals are just on a different level of intelligence when it comes to the law. So I was well taken care of, and I'm forever grateful for that. And we've become brothers through this experience. But what I have learned thus far, I mean, you can't unlearn it. So this is why I say when you're involved with the legal system, the second you lawyer up, you're deemed incompetent. Okay, that means you can't handle your own affairs. So now someone could speak on your behalf. Somebody can make an order to throw your ass in jail, and they can make. Typically, what they do plea deals. Everybody's getting a plea deal nowadays. Our law system is we have the law of the land, which is common law, but that's not what our administrative court proceedings are abide by. They're statutory. The statutory laws that are implemented, these policies and mandates, that's not law. So, all of this bullshit that's happening with COVID and the mask and the vaccines, that's because we are ignorant and we do not know proper law. And, my recommendation for anybody that is, trying to overcome any of this, you got to read your federal and state constitution to have an insight, because all the power is invested in the people. Government is under us. We, the people, are above the government.
Yeah.
And that right there is, there's volumes to this, of course. I'm just giving the first volume to this. And I don't really want to dive too much into this because I don't want to, because we could.
Yeah, I mean, we'd be here all day talking about my favorite topic, which is freedom, which to me is what this whole thing is about. And real quick, there was Warren asked if Johnny has a GoFundMe. I'm going to post up Johnny's Instagram. So right now he doesn't have that, but go check out his Instagram, follow him on there, and any announcements that he has, he's going to let everybody know what's going on there on his IG.
Yeah, Warren, I appreciate that. I was recommended to get a GoFundMe, and because all of this, I mean, we have to drive 3.5 hours to come to a hearing. We've been doing this every single week for the whole year. So I mean, that does add up, but at the same time, I don't know. I guess I'm not gonna say it's pride, but if I could take care of myself, I'm gonna take care of myself. I don't really want to have to put it out there for others, and I appreciate it, I really do. But yeah, that's really much all I can say about that. I appreciate it for sure.
Yeah, and definitely, like I said, give him a follow, and that's the way now, where you can have that support, because then if there does come a time when we need to take action, we're ready to take action, and so that's real important.
Yeah, so we're at the position where we had our first court hearing, and the first thing that they wanted to do was give us a lawyer. And in the very beginning, I didn't know any better. So we took counsel on, and it wasn't until maybe a week or two later where the guys that I was talking with were like, "Hey, you got to get rid of the counsel." But then I found out real quick that they weren't going to let me go. They don't want somebody being in there representing themselves, because it changes the dynamics of the court. So when you have a lawyer, the lawyer's priorities are the court, the bar, their bar certificate, and the distant third is their client. So when we were in a position to try to dismiss the lawyer, Orange County wasn't going to let that happen, and they didn't. I went through 5 different lawyers to try to get them off the case in order for me to create my own record, because all the documents that were put into our cases was only based off of CPS reports. I was never able to put any rebuttals to what they were saying. I was never able to file documentations. I was never able to put an affidavit into what was happening truthfully. And because of that, I was steamrolled. They steamrolled me all the way through, ended up taking Journey away indefinitely at the time. We took away our visitations, and, you know, we were just subject to basically being put in the back seat of all of this. And we just, hey, you're going along for the ride, whether you like it or not. So along with the juvenile proceedings that we were involved with, we were also facing criminal charges. So we were having to go to criminal court as well. Now, going into criminal court, I was able to be I was able to be in there as a pro se litigant and not have an attorney. I was able to create a record. I was able to file documents. I was able to combat all of that they were doing to me. Now, even though in the criminal case, they didn't acknowledge anything. And this is a big wake-up call that I want to emphasize here. These courts nowadays are being conducted not how our forefathers intended the courts to be. Everybody is subjected to a trial by jury, a jury of your peers. So if something happens, the people that are close to you and around you, they determine whether or not you're guilty or not. But when you're involved in an administrative hearing, it's a bench trial, which means the single judge is going to determine the facts and findings of the case and determine whether or not, you know, you're guilty or you're not guilty, whether you get your kids back or you don't get your kids back, based off the preponderance of the evidence. But if we're not able to put anything in the evidence and only CPS is going to put stuff into the evidence, who do you think is going to win? So I was being educated at the time to learn about this. So as it was happening, I wasn't too worried. Still, I was still, you know, cool, calm, and collective, trying to just get through this. But when it started to get rough around the edges, when the prosecutor really started to, you know, those reports started to surface. They were providing one every 2 weeks, and they were just adding more stuff, like just stuff that, and again, I have to emphasize this because it's so important for me personally. And, you know, I'm not going to sit here and cast judgment, but, you know, if you have family members that are in a belief system that doesn't align with what you're saying or doing, and I'm trying to choose my words carefully because, like I said, I mean, it is what it is. I'm just going to say this. Just worry about yourself. Worry about yourself. And then worry about others. And I mean, that's kind of, after all the damage that I've experienced through all of this, it is, I mean, it's still, I still fumble for words because I'm still going through the process. Maybe as it, you know, maybe getting my son back, maybe getting my life back to, you know, as it was, maybe at that point there can be some clarity of thought. But, you know, as of right now, you know, it's just there's a lot of gray areas still that those wounds haven't healed yet. And especially coming from a position where, you know I didn't do anything wrong. You know, we never would. I mean, Journey was our pride and joy. You know, we loved him more than I could say I loved him more than I have any of my other kids, because I was a different person than I was, you know, 12, 13 years ago. So being that, someone else is coming in from the outside saying, you don't love your kid. You abuse your kid. You did this to your kid. That your kid is suffering because of you. Like, those are new lows that I've experienced from others. And it's just, it's very difficult when it's coming from people that are supposed to, have like unconditional love for you as a immediate close family members. So, it carries over from, as I said, there's just a lot. And I kind of bounced away from what I was discussing, but this has emphasis in this. And I know that if others are going through things similar, even if it's not as extreme as what's going on, just still having people that you feel that are close to you have a form of betrayal or hatred or, negative emotion harnessed within themselves towards you. That affects both parties. So, what I have really emphasized for myself personally is I can't harness those thoughts for other people. If someone harms me, I'm going to forgive you. I'm going to forgive you. And I'm going to let that go because I don't want that hate in my heart. I don't want to hold on to anger. I don't want to be mad at someone. I don't want to be in a position where another person controls how I feel. I've learned to really accept that as much as I can and continue to work on that because, like I said, there's days where I'm like, oh my God, I haven't seen my kids for this long. And I say kids because they took all my kids away. Mm. Yeah, CPS got in contact with Tulare County, said suspend all visitations. And I haven't seen my kids for over a year. That's ridiculous. That's crazy. And, it's really hard because I can see if I went to court or went to trial, was convicted, someone said, okay, yeah, you did this, where you were found guilty. There's firsthand witnesses. They saw you do this. They saw you harm this person or whatever. And okay, I could accept that. But for someone to go based off of hearsay or say, oh, I heard this, or we think that this happened, like that's why this is so sensitive, because there hasn't been due process of law. And when you know that you're in the right, and no one could justify how much I love my kids but me. That's it. No one else. I don't care if my spouse lives with me and I don't care if I see my siblings every single day. They still don't know because that's happening inside. That's happening internally. But for someone to come in and try to determine that, oh, you don't care or love for your kids because we think that you did this, like that's wrong. It's wrong. It's just plain out wrong. So
yeah, that's well, I'm really thankful that you shared that story with everybody and got into that, because I know that there's a lot of other people that unfortunately relate to your story directly, and in that same position, having child taken away, just scared, not knowing where to turn, what to do, getting caught up with some kind of fly-by-night attorney situation, or even worse, the court-appointed attorney or whatever they do. And so so I appreciate you sharing your voice on that. And as I said before, if anybody that wants to plug in with Johnny and support Johnny, follow him on his Instagram. I posted that up a second ago. I posted up here again. But very powerful testimony there, Johnny.
Yeah, thank you. So right now we're gonna bring on an individual named Ed who's gonna break down the law side of all this. And he's the only person, along with the other guys, David, Daniel, Chris, that they've seen me, because I've been in court. We're looking at probably at least 50 times. I've been in front of multiple judges. I've faced the prosecutor, I've gone to preliminary hearings, trials. I've examined witnesses. I mean, I've done all that stuff, all the good stuff that you see on TV, and you're just like, I wonder how that feels to be like that and do all that. So, I've been in the trenches. As Brother Aaron would say, I'm in the trenches. I'm doing what I got to do.
Yeah, I mean, this is for real.
Yeah. So, and but here's the thing that's important too, is if I'm fighting for myself and for my kid and for my family, and I want that responsibility. I don't want to give that responsibility to some other some court-appointed attorney or some other individual who I'm just a number to him. I wouldn't be able to live with myself. So even before I knew all that I know now, I was like, I'm not going to just have somebody else fight for me. I'm going to fight for myself. And I can tell you this much. They know who I am now. They know what has been happening, and they know that I'm in the right. And even though they're not going to admit it, they're going to keep backpedaling. They're going to keep backpedaling, because everything that I've thrown at them it's based off of law. It's based off of actual how it should be conducted, how our court system should be. And this is why when we bring on Big Ed, he's gonna drop some jewels. So anybody that has problems with this, he's gonna enlighten you to a way that it's gonna bring things to the light, and it's gonna assist our nation for sure. Definitely so. So I sent him the link to hop on.
He's locked and loaded. He's ready.
Oh, sure, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I shouldn't even have to question that.
All right, well let's bring him on.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes,
sir.
Okay. All right, so I got a chance to listen from about 8:35 on to what Johnny was saying, and Johnny hit all the high notes, but what the people really want to know is that the government is stealing our children for profit. Okay, that's the bottom line. They're stealing children from loving families for profit. In a child. All right, so my partner Chris and I, we basically do child support enforcement actions, and the way it works out is the federal government, for every dollar that that's collected on the non-custodial parent by the state, the federal government gives the state 66 cents. So they collect $1 from the non-custodial parent for child support, which, by the way, the mother and the children don't get the whole dollar. They collect another 66 cents. So this is all for profit. When it comes to Johnny's case, Child Protective Services, they collect anywhere from $2,000 to $14,000 a month on a child that they use their lucrative, what I call their lucrative foster care program. So they take the child away. Now they're providing services. Now the state's providing services. They put the child in a home. And by the way the law is written, it doesn't have to be a home in the United States. It could be a home abroad. They can ship that child anywhere they want to. And for each child that they put in this lucrative system, they make anywhere from $2,000 to $14,000 a month on the child. Why is there such a difference? It's because the $14,000 variety are children that might have mental disabilities or physical disabilities. The more disabilities they have, the more money the state makes per month on the child. So what they're doing in Johnny's case, Johnny's child doesn't have any problems. But what they're trying to say is that, listen, this Children's Healthcare of California, I would never take my child to that hospital. And I know Johnny would back me up on that. The saving grace in Johnny's case, Johnny and Jackie's case with Journey, is that they went to they were on vacation. They slept in a motel room. It was a little cold that night. You know, they had the air conditioner on. They'd been in the sun all day. When they got up, Journey was acting a little listless. And I don't know how much of this you explained, Johnny, before, but I'm just going to say what happened. So Jackie started freaking out. You know, and anybody that's been listening to Johnny, like I have this whole time, or anybody that's not sure of it, these parents love their child. That child is everything to them. Okay. So I'm going to get into the lawyers in a second, but I just want to briefly say what happened, how the evil happened. So they go to the first hospital, Hoag, which is just an emergency room. And they run the kid through all kinds of tests. They find out his blood sugar is a little low, which is the same for each and every one of us. We go to sleep, we fast, we wake up in the morning, our blood sugar is low. Same thing for the child. So everything else was possible hypoxia, which means oxygen may have been cut off to the brain for a moment or a few moments, but nothing. There was nothing else out of the ordinary. So they give the kid a clean bill of health, but they send him to CHOC because they're a specialty hospital. Well, I learned about this after the fact, but these children's hospitals have a CPS agency inside the hospital. And they just sit there waiting for a doctor to say, hey, I think this child's been abused. So here's what happened in Johnny's case, okay? So everybody, and we made sure that the judges in these cases understand this, but here's what happened. They transfer the kid. The medical report we didn't get from Hoag. But they transferred it to CPS. CPS took possession of the child, went to the court, got a writ, kept the child in foster care, in temporary foster care, while they went through both civil and criminal trials. There's a reason that they split it up into civil and criminal. So they're accusing the parents of neglecting their child and starving their child. That's what they're accusing them of, okay? They knew that Johnny had a propensity, and I know I'm on this type of program where, you know, Johnny has his own way of eating. I don't know if vegetarian is the right word, but you know, Johnny eats very healthy, probably more healthy than most people do. So I don't know all the terminology for that. Johnny can explain it better than I. But anyway, they fed the baby. They loved their baby. They took care of their baby. They were on vacation with their baby when this happened. So they get to the CHOC hospital. This doctor, who I believe is getting paid by Child Protective Services, and I'm going to show you something that's going to shock you in a second. I don't know, Professor Spira, but can I share the screen from here? If you could check that out
if there's a button for you to share.
It says share.
Yeah.
And it says video file or share screen. I'm going to hit share screen and see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
can you see me now?
I can add that to the screen. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So they take his child, their jurisdictional report from CHOC in this what I believe is a paid doctor. I can't prove it yet, but I'm right on the cusp of it. They take the child and they put this damning report, this jurisdictional report out, okay? And say that the child was lacking oxygen and starved, severely malnourished and starved for days. That's what their jurisdictional report said. Johnny and I were talking one night after he brought us on, and I said, well, what did the doctor say at the other hospital, the first hospital you took him to? Because I was reading the jurisdictional report, and all it says is that the baby was transferred from Hoag. So nowhere in the jurisdictional report does it say that the parents admitted the child to the hospital. Nowhere in the report does it say that. They leave out all the pertinent facts. You know, the parents were worried about their child. They rush them to the hospital. Anybody listening to this, they'd do the same thing. You know, Johnny actually had a premonition about it, I think, but obviously Jackie was very concerned. You know, Johnny was concerned. They didn't know what to do, so they did the only thing they could do. They took the child to the hospital. So that's what happened. So anyway, 7 months later, we get a copy of the Hoag report, and the Hoag report says that the kid was well presented, well nourished, with plenty of oxygen. 3 to 5 hours later, he goes to CHOC, and now he's being diagnosed as severely malnourished, starved for days, and deprived of oxygen. Which doctor is correct? They did an extensive diagnosis. I mean, it was like 14 pages that Hoag had, the first hospital had. Extensive. So my question is, how does a kid go from being well-nourished, well-presented with plenty of oxygen to severely malnourished for days, starved for days, severely malnourished, and a lack of oxygen in 5 hours? That's impossible. Now, let me get to let me say a word about the lawyers, and then I'll go to the courts and what I'm going to show you about these acts that are actually in your state statutes right now. I don't care what state you're in, these statutes are in your state. So the lawyers, their secret oath is the system comes first, which means the state. Their fellow brethren comes second. That means all the other state bar attorneys. And then their client comes a distant third. That's their real oath. Okay. What Johnny was saying earlier is there's a Georgia appeal case, and there's several other cases throughout the states that essentially the one in Georgia is called Carlson v. Carlson, Carlson versus Carlson. And what it says in that appellate level case is, even if all the parents' rights are violated, the appeal court cannot look at those violations because they had the benefit of counsel. I hope that sinks in. They lose all their rights because they had the benefit of counsel. Now, like Johnny said, what if they didn't want counsel? They're forced on. And they're all, believe me, when the parents go into one of these family courts, it's them it's them on an island. It's them by themselves. Even the attorneys that quote unquote say they're representing them, they're not. They're there to perform their duty to make sure that the state recovers its property. And if anybody doesn't believe me, look at the other side of a marriage license. The other side of a marriage license, the actual contract part, says that any property created between the parents becomes the property of the state. It's called the doctrine of parents patriae, which means that we're basically all children are property of the state. That's what it means, because parents get together, they create their property, they create their child or children, they automatically presume that they're property of the state. So then on the other side of it, I'm going to go to this. Can you still see my screen here? This Uniform Interstate Family Support Act, revised in 2008. Now, I want to show you something. This law is copyrighted, which means you can't use it against them. They can only use it against you unless you have express written permission. And it's copyrighted by this group of harlots called the National Conference of Commissioners on Uniform State Laws. They've recently changed their name to the Uniform Law Commission, and you can look that up on YouTube, Uniform Law Commission. And it'll make you sick to your stomach if you watch their videos, because they're pushing these acts. If it says the word uniform in front of it and it says the word act behind it, you can be fairly certain that it's not good for you or your children. What this is international treaty law. This is from the Hague Convention. This is straight from the Hague Convention. And I'm going to go down here. I couldn't page mark everything. This is actually one of the biggest ones, but it's called the Uniform Interstate Family Support Act, and it's the governing law that they use in these family courts, okay, as the name implies. So what it basically says is that this started in 1961. This is private international treaty law under the Hague Convention. Why is that important to anyone with a child? The 10th Amendment says that any law not reserved to the limited and reserved to the federal government is decided by the states or the people. And that word "or" is huge. In other words, the courts are presuming that you agree to be governed by this international treaty law. But that's their presumption because they put this act into their state statutes. But the truth is, it's a violation of your 10th Amendment right. And so we've brought that up in both Johnny's civil and criminal cases, but the judges act like they don't hear them. And like Johnny said, he went through five lawyers, okay, or five attorneys in the CPS case. I don't even want to call them lawyers because lawyers is a different thing. So, okay, here we go. Subsection 3, Convention. Identifies the Hague Maintenance Convention, the basis on which USFA 2008 was drafted. Hague Maintenance Convention means the Hague International Treaty. So they've got international treaty law from the United Nations inside your state statutes, and they're doing this kind of stuff every day. This Uniform Law Commission that put these acts together, it's a group of 350 retired judges and lawyers that are making the law. They'll go to a state like where Johnny's at in California. They'll get a sponsor in their legislative body to sponsor the bill, and they'll pass it. As a matter of fact, I looked it up before I come on today for California. The vote was 94-0 in favor of this law. Okay, and this law is what allows them to steal your children. There's another one in California from the same people that's called the same group that's called the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction and Enforcement Act. And that's how they took possession of Johnny with CPS before they actually tried to remove the child. Okay. So here's the Hague Convention on Private International Law. Here's the, if anybody wants to write it down, it's hcch.net/index. As noted above, convention was a result of negotiations involving more than 70 foreign nations. In some instances, political subdivisions of a foreign nation. You know what that means? That means a state. Conducted in a series of meetings from May 2003 to November 2007. Also, something of note to interest here for anyone that's a parent is anyone that has is a parent. There's no definition in these definitions for the word parent. There's only a definition for a person acting as parent. What does that mean? That means an attorney. Okay, so they're defined, but the parents aren't. And the reason they don't define parents in these acts is because the legal and lawful definition of a parent is the lawful biological mother or father of the child. And that's what Johnny and Jackie are. They're the lawful parents. Okay, I'm going to bring something over here to this same screen. I got this from David Jose, courtesy of David Jose, which Johnny has filed. The 1935 Social Security Act, 1101-6D, original intent of the legislature, which is very important, folks, because if they get away from the original intent of the legislature, then the law is null and void. And a statute is not a law. A statute is an unconstitutional mandate. I'm going to prove that to you in just a second. Nothing in this act shall be construed as authorizing any federal official, agent, or representative in carrying out any of the provisions of this act to take charge of any child over the objection of either of the parents of such child. Now, when CPS went to take Johnny and Jackie's child, they wouldn't sign their waiver form. Okay, they were smart enough not to do that. So what they did is they put a false form in, and under the child's social security number, because their child was home birth, they put in a number, but you couldn't read the last four numbers. But they put in a number like the child had a social security number. And then the CPS officer signed on the line that says signature of the father.
Wow.
Manufactured evidence. Okay. So this is pretty cut and dried right here. And both of them have been saying for almost a year now, almost over a year now. They've been saying, don't take my child. I mean, I've heard Jackie cry in court. I mean, I've seen everything that their attorneys have done. Now, I'll tell you another thing. Constitution doesn't apply in these courts, folks. There have been no courts and no judges since 1789. The law is called Self versus Ray, R-E-Y. And Self versus Ray says there have been no judges in the United States since 1789, and there have been no courts of law, what they call courts of record, which are governed under the common law since 1789. So these acts here, and see everywhere where it says in which the convention is enforced with respect to the United States, foreign support order means a support order of a foreign tribunal. That's what these are. And I'll tell you where the definition of these courts are. And I mean all courts, all the way up to the Supreme Court of your state. Look at the International Organization Immunities Act of 1945, Section 2. Section 2 of that act says that these are foreign courts doing business. Think about it. If a court was not foreign, if a state was not foreign, then there would be no Duns and Bradstreet number for the courts. And to prove that, I'm gonna share one more thing with this group here that I think everybody will get a. This will shake you right here. This will jar you a little bit. This is the Dun and Bradstreet business background report for the judiciary courts of the state of Texas. And as far as we all know, the state of Texas was the last republic, you know, and those people are still adamant about keeping their republic. Let me show you something. Supreme Court building, year started 1845. Okay, employees total 1,049, employees here 64. Read this right here. Business history, business type. What kind of corporation is it? It's a for-profit corporation. Mm-hmm. That's their Supreme Court right there, folks. What's interesting is it says date incorporated 1836. Do you know that the state of Texas was not didn't ratify their constitution and become a state until 1845? 10 years later. Almost 10 years later. So this happened, yeah. And here's the directors, the officers. Thomas E. Phillips, Chief Justice. He's like the CEO. Thomas R. Phillips, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Business started 1845 by the citizens. Now here's the question: if the courts are a for-profit corporation, who are their clients?
Right.
Right. That makes sense, right? Let me show you something else. Let me show you something else while we're on this track, because I'm trying to wake people up and I'm trying to show them what they can't see. I've spent years getting this information, many years, because Johnny's right. I was a proponent of the Constitution, you know, and I've read it and studied it all my life. And I'll tell you another thing: I was never indoctrinated into what they call the publicly funded education system, public education system. I went to private school where they took the Bible and the Constitution very seriously. What are these? These are Dunn's numbers. Okay, so each one of these has one of those Dunn's background reports that I just showed you guys. United States government, there it is right there. There's their Dunn's number. Department of Defense, Department of Treasury. This is where Johnny and Jackie and everybody else that has children has problems. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. There's their Dunn's number. Okay. What I find interesting, here's each state. Johnny's in California. There's the state of California's Dunn's number. There's their largest city's Dunn's number. They're all for-profit corporations. Okay. Yep. And then you get all the way down to the bottom of this. This is what will shock you. United Nations has a Dunn's number. Who are they doing business with? Right? They're doing business with us.
Yeah.
And it's not us wanting to do business. We're being thrust into it by a bunch of presumptions. Also, I want to show everybody this because I think this will help everybody. I'm going to show you where they hide laws at. Okay. And this law is called the treaty. All right. Let me see. Family law, case law. I got so many files. I don't know where I put everything, but I want everybody to see this because this will give you an idea of what they're actually doing. Oh, I know where I got it. I want to show everybody where they're hiding the law complete. Okay, here we go. Okay. In 1978, this law came into being, and this was a treaty with the United Nations. Okay. In 1978, in 1992, it was passed. Why did it take them 14 years to pass a law? You don't realize how unusual that is with the United Nations. And it was received and referred to the Committee on Foreign Relations. Basically, the United States had to agree to this law, but it took them 14 years to pass it. I'm going to show you why. Again, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Article 1. Everybody read that sentence right there, number 1. All peoples have the right to self-determination.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all peoples have the right to self-determination. So what does that mean? Don't be a person. Most people don't understand that all those state statutes start with this person shall do this person shall have that. A person is plural. It has several different meanings. It can mean an individual. It could mean a corporation, a trust, association. And when you go into these courts, if you look at your documents, like when they summoned you to court, your name's in all capital letters. Mm-hmm. In the General Printing Accounting Office, that means that that you're being presumed as a corporation. Okay, because that's how they denote corporations. Has anybody ever noticed when you walk into a graveyard how all the names are capitalized? Why? Because they're dead entities. It has nothing to do with respect. They're dead entities. And as far as the government's concerned, they're dead corporations. But this is called the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. So right there, you could fight and say, you could take this page right here and this page right here and lay it on the judge's desk and say, hey, I'm not a U.S. citizen. I've determined for myself that I'm a state national or American national. And that's why they hit it. And when I say they hit it, here's what happened. In 1992, when they passed it, they didn't publish it. Matter of fact, if you go to Cornell Law or Justia or somewhere like that on the internet or anywhere you can think of, you will not find Treaty 95-20, which is what this is. There it is right there. Senate consideration of treaty document 9520. They hid it. They hid it from us, and they hid it because when they passed it, took them 14 years to pass it. They did not want to put this one sentence in there because think about it, it stops their gravy train. They could presume everybody was a U.S. citizen before, but you don't want to be a U.S. citizen. When I hear the word U.S. citizen, all I'm thinking is a surety or debt slave. That's what you are. You want to be a state citizen of one of the several states. And Johnny and I have been correcting his status ever since we started. But does it matter to these? All right, so under the International Organizations Immunities Act of 1945, these courts are foreign tribunals. What they really are federal, insular, regional, martial rule tribunals. That's what they are. Has anybody ever noticed when you go to a courthouse, they got the civil flag flying in front on the flagpole, but when you get inside the actual courthouse, they've got the Admiralty flag. A flag is meant as a warning. So they cover their bases by putting that flag in the court and telling everybody it's just for decoration, because people don't even know that flags are warnings. And I can prove that. All you got to do is Google an image of the color guard for the United States. Look at the guy wearing the green uniform and look at the flag he's flying. That is a forward war area flag. The flag that looks like the civil flag, but it's three sides yellow fringe. That's a forward war area flag. And you can't get much more of a warning than that. So anyway, I wanted to show people this. Everything Johnny said is absolutely correct. I've been going with him every step of the way. Let me say this. Now I'm going to prove the Constitution has nothing to do with these courts. In Article 1, Section 16 of Johnny's state, it says that the right to a trial by jury shall remain inviolate. If anybody, I'm sure that everybody in this audience knows what the word inviolate means. It means they can't violate it. But the judges and attorneys don't understand that in the state of California. So when he had his second to last attorney that was forced on him, what'd you have, Johnny? Like 4 Marston hearings?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A Marston hearing is when Johnny's telling them why they can't represent him. Okay. And as soon as he got rid of one, they put in another one. As a matter of fact, I said, let's get rid of Peggy before they go to trial, and then they'll have to let you represent yourself. What did they do? We got rid of them because we had very valid reasons for getting rid of that attorney. I mean, this attorney was lying to Johnny from the start. And she says that the Constitution doesn't, those laws don't apply because this is a special venue. And so she even admitted, I think, Johnny, that the venue, when you asked her about the venue, was quasi-criminal.
Quasi
All right,
criminal.
not criminal, not civil, quasi criminal. So I'm like, well, show me where I can find the rules in the California Rules of Procedure of quasi criminal where I can defend myself in court in this venue. They don't exist. They made it up. They just made it up. So I was going somewhere with that story. So the attorney. So we got rid of the attorney. It's Thursday before the trial. Johnny hears from another attorney. What was it? Sunday afternoon, right?
Yeah.
He calls up and he says, "Hey, I'm your new defense counsel, and I'm gonna ask for a continuance." So Sunday afternoon he calls. Monday he goes in. He says, "Your Honor, I need a continuance. I haven't had time to look at all the aspects of this case, and I need it." Judge says, "Overruled." He says, "Your Honor," he says, "objection noted." And then what'd they do? They started with the trial. Now that, to me, folks, is not effective assistance of counsel. And we're all guaranteed that under the Sixth Amendment. Not to mention when they won't let you make a record. I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, the Supreme Court needs to hear about that, because if Johnny can't make a record, but the CPS and DSS can, then at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what Johnny and Jackie do, they're going to lose. It's a rigged zero-sum game. Okay. So does anybody have any questions for me? Anything they're curious about?
Yeah, so what does it look like when Johnny is in fighting this, or any mother or father that's going through this? Like, what are the steps that they should take to put themselves in the best position to get their child back, avoid criminal charges? You know, how, what works? Because
Get it out of state.
Sometimes you could show them different laws and things, and they're just like, whatever.
Don't go to state court. Don't go to state court. Get it out of state court immediately. Take it to federal district court. Because think about it. Title 4D and 4E are federal laws anyway. They're the ones that have original jurisdiction. How does a state enforce federal law within the state? They do it by contract. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to show you guys. Now look at this. I got this last week. Okay. And this is this. So if there's a contract between, well, let me show you one more thing before I show you this. I don't know what your time limits are, but I think this is important. Everybody should take a look at what I'm laying down here, because nobody else is ever going to show you the information that I'm showing you.
That's a big reason why it has been so pivotal in this education process, because he has this information, whereas most parents who go through this, they're suffering, they're traumatically affected, where their thought process is not going to be able to comprehend all of this stuff. And like Ed's pointing out, you're not going to find this from anybody else.
Okay. This is the California child support enforcement contract between the state or the county and the state and the federal government. This is it. Okay. This is from 2008. Same time, request for services by a foreign country. Does anybody see anything noticeably the same as what I showed you about that Uniform Act? Fiscal policies. All right, here's the evil right here. This contract, which is never shared with anyone in child support, in the child support arena, says this: state financial participation. The state participates financially in the program. Mm-hmm. In the Georgia legislative guidelines and the California legislative guidelines and everybody else's legislative guidelines, in family court, it says the court is defined as the judge, which is constitutionally impossible. The judge is supposed to be an impartial trier of fact only, but they can't do that if they are the court. Mm-hmm. So that's why they don't mind trampling all over the parents' rights. But think about this, the way I thought about it. The state financially participates in the program. Well, if they don't order child support and they don't get that 66 cents on every dollar that they collect from the defendant or the client, their client in that court, then they don't make any money. So this is why you'll hear like you hear Johnny saying in Child Protective Services, and every father that says in child support enforcement, you can't win. That's why they believe that you can't win, because this is sitting in the background that they don't share with you, by the way. And if anybody wants to run this down, it's in California, it's called the COM code, but everywhere else it's called the Uniform Commercial Code, which is the governing contracts. You know, that's what we use in every state. That's foreign too. It's it was brought in, and what it says is in the preamble of the Uniform Commercial Code is the law of merchants. Well, that's just a fancy way to say it's maritime law in the water, not on the land and soil jurisdiction. Okay, and that's how they get away with calling you a corporation, by the way. The state participates financially in the program. So they have to have a non-custodial parent paying for them to collect that 66 cents. What does that mean? That means that judge or quote unquote judge has a financial interest in the outcome of a case.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And that's why you don't want to go to state court. The way the federal government looks at it, the U.S. district courts, they're actually saving money if they adjudicate these cases up there. But if children are property, and the IRS says they are, by the way, just like a laptop. I don't know the code off the top of my head because I'm more into criminal law, but I can find it for the group. But the tax code, Title 26 of the federal code says that children are property just like laptops are. And why is that? Because you can depreciate, you know, for the care and feeding of your child. You can get credits back for that, you know. So I put it up here for the world to see, for you guys to see. And then let me go back over here. So what they do is they have what they call cooperative agreements with these agencies. Child Protective Services is one of them. Okay. State agency designation, authorization, organizational, and staffing. State operation administered by political subdivisions. Where do we see that? We saw that in the Uniform Interstate Family Support Act under the Hague Convention. Political subdivisions. What they mean by that is a municipality. There's not 1 square inch in your state or my state that isn't in some or another foreign municipal jurisdiction. All municipal corporations come directly. They're all registered in the District of Columbia, which is not a state.
Right.
That makes all municipalities inside your state foreign to the state. So it's like we got this big, wet, international foreign blanket sitting over our states. Who gave the state of California permission to incorporate to begin with? Think about that. I can't find that anywhere. That's not the way. That wasn't the original intent of Congress, but it is today. It's all about contracts. So I'm not sure where it is in California, but it basically services. It's all about services to individual. This state allows a jurisdiction that collects support for the state under this plan to retain any application fees collected under this section. And they do it by what's called cooperative agreements. Services to individuals, mandatory annual fees. It's all about the money, folks.
All about the money, yeah.
Okay, it doesn't matter if the parents are heart-stricken because the state's trying to take their kid. It doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't even matter what they can prove. All they need, and Johnny said it perfectly, all they need is to produce some hearsay evidence from people that wouldn't know Journey. They couldn't pick Journey out from a lineup. They couldn't pick him out from a lineup. They've never met him. And they're making allegations against Johnny and Jackie, saying that they harmed their child because some doctor formed a diagnosis, an opinion. The doctor couldn't say that with any regularity or authority either. And I think the doctors, especially in Chalk Hospital, you know, I can't prove it yet, so I can't say it for a fact, but I'm right on the cusp of it, and I'll show you why. Okay, so everybody knows the one constitutional officer we have in every county, in every state, is the sheriff, right? Everybody knows that. That's the last. He's the last stand. Okay. This contract is entered in between the state of Florida Department of Revenue Child Support Program, hereinafter referred to as the department or the program, and Sumter County Sheriff's Office, hereinafter referred to as the contractor. I'm going to show you why that's important. First, I want to show you this. Official payee and representatives. This is Bill Farmer Jr., Sheriff of Sumter County. He signed this contract. All right. I'm going to show you why this is bad juju for all of us right here. Payment method. Okay, let me go up the front here. G, okay, it's M I'm looking for. There it is right there. Independent capacity of the contractor. All right, so the sheriff's the contractor, right? To act in the capacity of an independent contractor and not as an officer, employee of the state of Florida, except where the contractor is a state agency. So the state agency can act as an employee of the state of Florida, but not the one constitutional officer that we have in the county of each state. Every one of them, every county. So what does that mean? That means if somebody serves one of those unlawful, what I call glass warrants to some guy that skipped on his child support payment, he could literally shoot the sheriff in the face and he couldn't be held liable if this contract was presented, because you can protect yourself from unlawful searches and seizures. The Supreme Court says so. The sheriffs know that it's an unlawful warrant that they're serving. Actually, they don't even call them warrants. They call them commitment of arrest. To act in the capacity of an independent contractor and not as an officer. Well, if he's not acting as a constitutional officer, but he's wearing the badge and the gun, what are we to think? We just think he's the sheriff. This is proof that he ain't. This is an independent. This is an independent contractor being paid to look the other way to serve unlawful warrants and to execute writs of bodily attachment on individuals. Now, ask yourself this. If they've got a contract for a child support agency, what do they have for a child protective services agency? Right? What does CPS have? Are they getting paid for snatching the children? What do you think? This is all black and white right here, folks. Here's the contract number 2. Let me show you.
Yeah, and I was going to ask that because I think Johnny had a while ago had told me, or somebody, it was somewhere I heard this, where depending on, there's a certain amount, you can put a price on each child that's in their custody. And then when you start adding on different ailments or different things in the price, disabilities,
yeah. Oh no, hey, look, the sky's the limit. What it is services. So like Johnny and Jackie will tell you all throughout this process, which Johnny hasn't participated in any of them, they offer services. And every time that you take one of their, they tell you that you need to take the services in order to get your child back in the fastest way possible. Okay. But what they're really doing is they're bringing you down the rabbit hole, because at the end, what they're going to say is that even though they gave you services, it was to no avail.
Yeah.
Because the judge is still going to try to take the child. They can't get the $14,000 a month otherwise. I started with Johnny after they were already involved in this. I think I came on in like the beginning of October, and this all started back in August. It was either September or October, late September, early October. But they were already involved in the system. But something I learned just last week, because I'm still learning about all the fraud in CPS. See, that's not my mainstay. I've got 2 cases I'm working on, Johnny and Jackie, and then another couple in San Bernardino. But and they've got 5 children. Same thing. They didn't commit any crimes. They were temporarily homeless, and they took all 5 children. It's not a crime to be temporarily homeless. And it's not a crime for Johnny and Jackie to take their child on vacation. They would have never thought something like this would have happened. Not in a million years. Here's an attachment as an exhibit for what the sheriff has to serve to the contractor, and he has to email the invoices to the dor.state.florida.us. This is the Department of Revenue, folks. That's who the sheriff's getting paid by, the Department of Revenue, as an independent contractor. So the sheriff, there's nothing constitutional about this. This is the opposite of constitutional. So for each service of process, he gets paid $20. These are all made up numbers, but there's your reimbursement rate right there. In order for this to work, both CPS and the sheriffs they get paid the whole amount, the whole 66%. Whereas they negotiate, like in the court, the two attorneys, the one for the defense and the one for the state, they get a piece of that pie, but they're getting 66%. That's I know a bookie once in Georgia that said 10% was 5% was strong, but 10% was murder. This is 66%. Okay. Here's another thing. The FDOR operational accounting. This whole thing, let me show you this. This is really gonna highlight the whole what I'm trying to show you guys. Right here, contract document 1. To provide commodities and services indicated on attachment A. What's the services? It's the sheriff serving unlawful writs of bodily attachment in accordance with the terms and conditions specified in this contract. Purchase orders may be issued to the contractor annually. This contract was established by the following procurement method: sole source government. They even highlighted it for you. What does that mean? That means it didn't go out to bid. These agencies don't work unless they can get the right agencies like this, like the sheriff, the constitutional sheriff of your county, to get paid under the radar and look the other way. So sole source government. Okay, so sole source government means that it did not go out to bid. So I'll stop sharing now. That's basically what I wanted to show you guys. If anybody wants to ask any questions, or I know you guys are all following Johnny's case. One last thing I want to say. They called Johnny in for the all right. So once they do the jurisdiction, which they never proved jurisdiction, okay. Once they do that part, then what happens is they establish jurisdiction. Okay. And then they come back and take you to a different deal, which is disposition. Are we going to take the children or not? And then disposition always goes against the parents. So then they end up going to something called I'm going to sling this over here real quick. Then they end up going to these removal of parental rights. Well, I didn't know it at the time, but the parents don't get a service of process summons in these kangaroo family courts. They tell them at the previous hearing when and where to show up and tell them they're not getting another notice. So they don't even get service of process. So we're way off the rails. This isn't even color of law. This is theft. This is theft. This is theft of property, but basically it's theft of, it turns my stomach, which is why I got involved. I didn't really know anything about CPS and them stealing children. But I tell you what, once we get rid of child support, we're going after these guys hard, me and my partner. Look at this. This is a law that not everybody knows about. But Johnny, the first thing he did when we got together, he got rid of that attorney that he had, and he filed some documents into the case challenging jurisdiction. Why did he do that? Jurisdiction, once challenged, is to be proven, not by the court, but by the party attempting to assert jurisdiction. The burden of proof of jurisdiction lies with the asserter. Who is that? That's the Department of Social Services. Remember, the judge, for all intent and appearances, is supposed to be an impartial trier of fact. He's not supposed to tell you from the bench, we have jurisdiction. He can't do that. This law is saying he can't do that. The asserter has to prove jurisdiction. This court is only to rule on the sufficiency of the proof tendered. This is McNutt versus General Motors Acceptance Corporation, 298 U.S. 178, 1936. And I've already got it shepherdized right here.
You would stop sharing your screen so we can't.
Oh, yeah.
Reshare it.
Let me. I stopped sharing my screen. Oh, shoot, man. I'm sorry, guys.
That's all right.
Not thinking. How do I go back to sharing it? Let's see. Oh, here we go. Share. Sorry about that. Share.
So that's the first thing so if somebody gets their child's taken away and you find yourself in some kind of court situation, then you refuse the counsel, say I'm going to represent myself. And by the way, this is not legal advice. This is not medical advice. This is not advice at all. This is just we're having a conversation on YouTube.
Yeah, most of my stuff gets edited because I'm what you call a true seeker and a true sayer. I'm going to tell you the truth.
Yeah, well, I mean that's what we do on this channel, and YouTube has increasingly been more bullish on the censorship in the past year.
Hey, listen, so, we have a channel on there called Child Support Made Simple, and we get the same thing. If we get anywhere close, like if I was to quote Carlson v. Carlson over there, they would shut us down. They would shut it down because they don't want people to know that if you take an attorney that you lose all your rights. But the law's out there. In appellate level decisions, by the way, folks, even if it's in Georgia, it applies in California. It applies to all 50 states until they overturn it. So that's kind of scary too. But there are other states that have similar laws to this. But here's the law. If anybody wants to write it down, this is it right here. General Motors, McNutt versus General Motors Acceptance Corporation is from 1936. There's another thing attorneys won't do in court. They won't quote a single case prior to 1945. Not a single case. Why is that? Because it was morally constitutional back then. Now it's all statutes. I've converted 3 or 4 law students into, coming over and working with the good guys. And what they all told me, one, a 2L, Tisha, Johnny knows Tisha. She's helped him a little bit too. Tisha told Johnny that all they learn, and told me this, that all they really learn in law school is forms, procedure, and statutes. That's all they learn. They don't. Constitutional law is an elective in law school, folks. And think about it. They didn't really teach you anything about the Constitution, and they were a little vague on the history. And it's even worse today because now they're trying to change the history. Okay, I think I left that up long enough. Anybody else need me to keep it up a little bit longer? Everybody good?
Yeah, I think we're
okay. So does anyone have any questions for me? Because I got to get off. I got to get off and go on another call. Johnny got all this stuff filed today. I want to say one more thing. We put in a constitutional challenge in both of his cases. You did it both in civil and criminal today, right, Johnny? Okay. We put in a constitutional challenge. This is something new, but we think it's going to work. And basically, the constitutional challenge goes to the Attorney General of the state, because Johnny will tell you right away, and Jackie will tell you this too. They don't answer any of the paperwork. Johnny, have you had any of your paperwork answered?
Nothing.
We filed hundreds of documents, thousands of pages, but they won't answer any of his paperwork. But here's the constitutional challenge that we put to the state attorney general, and this is good for all 50 states. And the statutes for challenging a constitutionality of a state statute is in every state. You just got to find them. Maybe do a Google search. Constitutional challenge to attorney general over a state statute of the state of confusion. Whatever state. Here's the one question that we're asking. Actually, I'm asking 2 in Johnny's case, but this is the only one that you have to ask. Are the laws or statutes the defendant is accused of offending enacted by constitutionally qualified persons, including but not limited to an Article 6, Section 3 oath of office? Let me save you the suspense. No. Johnny's criminal magistrate, judge, whatever, a clerk masquerading as a judge, told him less than a month ago that if it wasn't state statutes that he was putting into his case, that she didn't want to hear about it. It had no effect. The one that's trying him for a criminal charge of abusing his child and neglecting his child right now told him that if it's not statutory, she didn't even want to hear it. From the bench.
In a criminal case. That's important.
Yeah, in a criminal case. So I want to say one thing in closing. I'm so proud of Johnny, and I'm proud of Jackie too. Jackie's scared to death, bless her heart. And I know Johnny is too. I would be scared. I would be mortified if the state was coming after my child, especially knowing what I know. And I tell people this all the time. If everybody knew what I knew about our judicial system, there'd be no shortage of tiki torches, pitchforks, and plenty of rope, folks. There'd be no shortage. And these state bar association members, they are between every financial transaction on the planet. And I just went through about 35 minutes of showing you that it's all by contract. It's all commercial. Even down to the county sheriff. It's all commerce. But the question again, I will repeat it one more time. Are the laws the defendant is accused of offending enacted by constitutionally qualified persons, including but not limited to an Article 6, Section 3 oath of office? They're all supposed to take that oath, and none of them do. Mm-hmm. If you don't believe me, if you got a judge in a case, go to the Secretary of State and tell them you want a copy of their oath. I got one guy in California right now. He's had to go through 19 judges through this COVID thing. They shut his corporation down. He had like a bistro, and they shut his business down. He's been through 19 judges that tried to hang him with 35 felonies, and I've gotten him down to 4. He's got 4 felonies that we got to deal with, okay? He went and got the oath of office for all 19 of those judges, and the bottom half of the oath that qualifies them to hold office in the state of California is missing. Not even there. Half of them weren't even signed. They're doing it right underneath our noses, folks. And I'm going to close with this because this is important. If our generation doesn't wake up today, and I mean immediately, if we don't wake up, if you've got children, I feel sorry for them because this is the last hope that we have to be free. If we don't do something in this generation, we've had 2 generations of parents that I don't want to say they fell asleep. I mean, it started right at 1945 with this International Organizations Immunities Act. But in 1945, when they created that act, they took over our courts. And now they're just taxing us. They're taxing us and they're making profit off of our children. That's exactly what's happening to Johnny and Jackie right now. It's all about the money. They don't care one iota about the fact that Johnny and Jackie love their child. It's got nothing to do with it. It's all about the numbers. We need to wake up. We need to come together, and we need to fight this evil. It's not just at our doorstep anymore, folks. It's inside our homes now. So with that, I'll yield.
Yeah, man, it was appreciate you coming on here, and say the name of your YouTube channel again.
Oh yeah, it's child support made simple. And not too long from now, we're going to have a child protective services made simple. I saw that one of your viewers was the CPS dad. His videos are great. I've watched many of his videos, and kudos to that guy, whoever he is, because he's a patriot. Mm-hmm. He's throwing up Amjur case law right now.
Yeah.
So hey, leave that one up, CPS. Let me write that one down. I don't think I have that one. Amjur 2D, Section 29, void judgments, page 404. Thank you very much. I might could use that in some of my stuff. But yeah, that guy's a patriot. I know, and I want to tell him that my partner that got me into this took me away from criminal law. He told me, he said, work with me for a month and I'll show you, because I told him there was nothing more corrupt than criminal courts. He said, work with me for a month and I'll show you these family courts are a lot worse than criminal courts. And I've been working with him ever since. That's how bad it is. The CPS dad, he probably had to go through it with his children. My partner, Chris Henry, one of the smartest men on the planet when it comes to child support enforcement and Title 4D. He was always one of the smartest guys in the room, but he went before the Ninth Circuit, Judge Shapiro 3 times. It took him 3 times before he won his case, starting at the family court in his county. He went through $750,000, but he got both his daughters back. So that's basically, that's what I'm saying. That's where we're at right now. We're trying to make it. If everybody remembers what I said about USFA and UCCJEA, the Uniform Acts, and that it's a 10th Amendment it's a direct 10th Amendment violation. If you're facing some problem like this, you should go in there saying, I never consented to being for me or my child or my children to be governed by private international treaty law, and therefore I'm in the wrong venue. Start out with that, and then it'll only get worse for them from there. They'll never prove jurisdiction on the record either. They'll never prove it on the record. So start out with your 10th Amendment violation, and then what CPS dad just shared with us is talking about void judgments. If you don't get due process, it's over. It's void. Every decision they've made in Johnny's case is void. But we're going to have to go through the mud to get to the higher court in order to get all this voided. But that's what we're going to do.
Yes, sir.
That's what we're going to do. If it kills me, that's what we're going to do. So, anything else?
No, we're good. Thank you, Big Ed.
Okay, brother.
Really appreciate that.
All right. Tell Jackie I said hi.
Will do.
I've heard a lot of good things about you, Professor. I hope to meet you again.
Yeah, likewise, man. I appreciate you being on.
Thank you for helping Johnny. Your support and your show means a lot to him. Means a lot to me too.
Privilege. It's a
All
privilege
right, my
to
friend.
do so.
Y'all take care. See you,
All
Johnny.
right, take care.
Later, Big Ed. Wow. Yeah. So you, for the viewers who maybe weren't expecting that little piece of the pie, just know that, that's a lot of years, a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge trying to, give you in 20, 30 minutes. But at the same time, what he's saying has a lot of relevance, and, the consciousness of the masses is nowhere near where we should be to proclaim ourselves to be in a position to take back that power. But this is where we're starting,
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's the level of what they've done to us on all levels, from the miseducation, and we got to remember. I mean, this whole, because once you start getting into the contracts and the corporations masquerading as law and all that kind of stuff, it shouldn't surprise anybody that's read a little history that understands this country is not based on all people were created equal. It's based on free labor, free labor, and so yeah, we have another episode if people want to check out a podcast episode from a couple years ago with Michael Fathauer, and we were talking there sort of the concepts of cities as corporations, the United States of America as a corporation, and all this stuff is documented. You can look it up, you can Google it. It's like, it's not a secret. It's just not a lot of people know about it, and they don't understand how to position themselves in this world. It's like we're given these ideals about where we're supposed to be positioned. It's where somebody has positioned you and sort of given you some toys to keep you occupied, some screens to look at, so that you don't get down into really understanding and taking ownership of your position as a human being, because they don't want that. Because now if you get out of their consumer cycle, you get out of their watching, get away from their vaccines and their poisons, and you start thinking for yourself. And there's too many of us to start doing that, then their entire thing crumbles, ends up in the dustbin of history, and we're over here starting over again, anew, and which is what's going to happen. But the pus and mucus tries to keep that. Let's slow it down, slow that down as much as possible. And I appreciate everybody that's tuned in, and I see everybody in the chats, and appreciate everything you're saying, Kuka, and Kuka Russell's been on here and is talking about this senator that was exposing and trying to take down the CPS that was murdered. And so what and Kuka has a background in this as well, and so I would like to really I want to do some more episodes on this entire topic, because I want to get into, as we've been talking about, the forced inoculations. Let's see, maybe that word will get through the censors, the YouTube censors. We'll call it inoculations, because it's the V word. They don't like that. So forced inoculation, forced, and with the children, and the way that the public school system, like what is that? What is this mess? Saying you have to go, or what do you, and you're going to show up and take the children away, put you in jail for not sending children to the re-education camp. And I went there, and some of us go through it, and we make it out, and because we find our way to the libraries, we find our way to study. Like, none of this stuff we're talking about wasn't even taught how to deal with the contract. Just how to deal with the thing. Not that we should be studying and understanding chain of title and this history of contracts and all that kind of. We're not giving any. We don't even. People are leaving so-called public schools. They can't even sign their name. They could maybe scribble. A lot of them, they're not. Can't. They don't know how to. They don't know cursive. I don't think they teach that anymore. I heard. So they don't know that anyway. But they're printing. Some of them can't even print their name. They can't read. They're not taught how to think. They're taught how to be good, happy slaves, as Brother Air might say. The happy slave is what is what it is. And being drugged, putting all these drugs. If the kid, don't let a child be excited and a lover of life and energetic and like that. Bring him over here, drug him up, so that he's out of it. And so that's why we say the most revolutionary thing that you can do is to control what you put into your body. And if you're a parent, that extends to your children, controlling what you put in your body and what you put in theirs. And it's your choice. This isn't any kind of, like I said, there's no advice. No advice ever comes from me, ever. No advice. This is just ether. I'm like the birds. They chirp. You can ignore the birds. You can listen to them chirping if that's what you want to do. It's up to you. But this is the revolution. This is like, revolution isn't always about standing outside with the fist up and like. Now we're controlling what we put in our bodies. We're creating spaces for ourselves to live the way that we want to live, where we are protected 100%, where they can't touch us. They can't mess with us. They can't come in. There ain't no warrant. No, you can't come in here. You're not going to mess with us. Leave us alone and go about your business. That's the direction. That's where it's going to be. And that's where it has to be, because they're not going to stop. And this thing is going downhill real quick. And so, and it's an epidemic, and they're targeting oftentimes people that are some of the weakest among us. They try to target, folks, and hope that they don't make it public. Don't wake people up to what's really going on. And so it's it's one of these things that's really under the radar. People don't know about this unless you find yourself in this situation, and that allows it to persist because there's no pushback on a massive scale, so we got to do what we got to do, and as Johnny was saying earlier, you got to first and foremost take care of yourself, get yourself together, and deal with what you need to deal with to maintain your freedom, because they always coming for that. They trying to find ways and they try to find all these ways to just take your freedom away from you. And what they've done well in more recent years is create ways for people to give their freedom up willingly.
Yeah.
Say, hit accept is like, all the terms and conditions of Facebook. Okay, accept. Did you read that? Do you know what you actually just gave up? And you know what you give up, you're using Google and all these kinds of things. So being aware is I'm not saying to never use these things. I'm saying let's use these things for our ends, to do what we need to do. And when you understand what they are and how they can be used, then that's a much better situation. But I want to bring on, I might bring Kuga on in a future episode, and because this forced vaccinations, the taking the children away, the medical kidnapping, all this stuff is got to stop one way or another. And so that's it's like, this is war. And it's like we say, and sometimes people think that, me and Brother Air being hyperbolic, or that you're like, oh, you're like dramatic, and we're saying, man, this is a war. Mm-hmm. We are in a war, and people like to look at, a lot of people like to sort of look at their world as through the the rose-colored glasses, like, this is, everything is okay, and just believe, and let's pray, and this kind of stuff. And it's like, no, we have to come together and resist the tyranny, speak truth to power. And one of a real revolutionary thing is just living the way that we want to live, regardless of whatever family, friends, city, fake judges, whatever it is, we live in how we want to live. That's our inheritance as humans on this planet, and that's it.
I want to touch on that real quick, because this insight of experience has really has expanded my mind to comprehend that how we live, how we eat, what we do with ourselves, it's all been a form of a program that we have been involved with since our environment, our what we were taught, what we were told, what we have been educated on. And that program is not aligned with being the best version of yourself, taking full responsibility of yourself, pursuing goals and being successful and being healthy and being wealthy. All of those divinity powers that are within us, they never are exposed. And we get glimpses of them here and there, but we never fully access that power that's in us. So when we face situations like this, for example, or we're going through problems in life, or we're having, emotional imbalances, and negativity and negative thoughts are just surfacing and a part of us on a day-to-day, it's a day-to-day regimen that, you have habitual bad negative emotions, and you think that's normal. But at the same time, if you're watching TV every single day if you're eating foods that are harming you every single day, if you're harnessing trauma that you've never processed, if you're experiencing anger that you've never let go of, on some level, from a spiritual perspective, you're creating that type of reality that's going to bring these certain situations into your life. And on the same token, I look at this situation and I say to myself, okay, I would have never even considered looking into law. I would have never questioned any form of government. I would have never, I went, 34 years of never even considering none of that. But it took one experience to make me go down this rabbit hole of education. And now, using my platform and interconnecting with individuals who have had similar situations, you can now connect and build, which is, what we've been doing with the Mucusless Diet Healing System groups is, you want to bring like-minded individuals to create something that we see could benefit humanity. And this is a part of that. This is a part of our own individual growth, but our individual growth also involves our surroundings. So with that being said, it's very important that, whatever it is that we're going through, we have to, on a very personal level, control the minimum of our thoughts, of what we're processing every single day, regardless of what we're going through. We may go through situations that our five senses say, hey, you know what, this is bad. We're in a bad situation. This is, what if it doesn't get better? And let's see, your thoughts are continuously running at that point. But to be able to take that and control that, and then envision the wish fulfilled, envision that it's going to get better. Easier said than done, of course, but this experience has only driven me and Jackie and the people around me to unite. I mean, that's what it comes down to, is we have to realize that everyone is us pushed out. We all have a connection with one another, and even though right now we're discussing something that's very traumatic and this is happening all over the nation, myself and the people that I'm working with, and there's people all across the world that are putting pieces together because we want to make the correction. So it's no different if everybody from the Mucusless Diet was going to the doctors and saying, hey, you know what? We got to change the diet. We got to, this is harmful. There are side effects. You don't want to use herbs instead. At some point, there's going to be a push that cannot be ignored. Right now, there's not enough people. I've experienced firsthand dealing with all of this and not being, I walk into a court, I'm ready to just, lay the law down and explain the law, but they don't care. But that's because nobody else is doing it. I would be in a situation where you have a whole auditorium of people, a whole store full of people wearing masks. And how many people are not wearing masks? A couple, if that. It's the same concept with our society right now. It's, you got to get a vaccine. Well, sure, okay, we're gonna just do it. Well, you're gonna lose your job if you don't do it. Okay, well, I'm definitely gonna do it now. But that's because we don't have that the knowledge to know any better. So in this situation, it's a matter of really just properly educating ourselves. And when you take that time to say, you know what, I'm going to educate myself, that inner power, that inner divinity that's inside of you, it's going to help you. You just have to be able to listen to it. That's why it's so important to clean out the body. During this year, I never stopped doing my enemas. You would never catch me eating 3, 4, 5 meals a day. I think, the worst I could say is, well, I had maybe 2 meals a day. But, those little things those are necessary. Sun gazing, being, being in a position to, take time to meditate, take time to reflect, take time to disconnect from what's happening around you. I mean, those things should be normal for everyone. Where now you have kids that are literally walking outside wearing a mask because they don't know any better. And, it's a situation right now where I thank everybody for the support. But at the end of the day, I know, I'm the person writing this story in my book. And I know the end of this story. So we all have to think on that level when it comes to our lives and what we're going through, regardless of what you're going through. Go through it. That's the real journey right there. It's what you go through, because good or bad or indifferent, all of that has a huge significance on how you feel, how and what thoughts you carry and harness, what emotions you carry and harness. And a situation like this, it exposes them. So all the parents that are dealing with certain situations, or you're dealing with something similar, or you're just going through a proceeding in court and you feel fear, harness that fear. That's important. That's so important. With the propaganda and the media and everything that they're doing, they're using fear to control us. Once you grasp that the fear is only an illusion and it's self-created, sure, there's subliminal programs. Sure, there's methods that they use against us, but at the same time, it's your own thoughts. You have to control that. It's happening within us first and foremost. So, I mean, I want to just, end with that, because, everything that's been happening, I'm so confident. Again, I'm jeopardizing 16 years in jail for this. I'm jeopardizing, a lot at stake. But I know in the end that, what I'm doing and my approach, even though it hasn't blossomed fruition of results yet, but that's because I'm in the trenches, and it has to go through this process before it goes up to the next level. And at that point, we'll find the remedy. And once I get Journey back and I see everybody sees him heal 100%, because right now my little baby, they have him on 5, 6, 7 medicines, all neurological suppressors. Mm-hmm. They lower his ability to move, his cognitive thinking ability, all of that. It's based off of the medication. They said that he was going to be a vegetable his whole life. They said he was never going to move again. He was never going to eat by himself. But I'm telling them, no, that's not going to happen. That's not true. He's going to heal 100%. I don't doubt that one bit. But again, it's going to take something like this. It's going to take this story to get out. It's going to take for people to see my paperwork, to see what I actually was doing, to see that, the corruption that was the fraud, the hearsay, the manufactured evidence, the faking or fraudulent birth certificate, fraudulent social security number, violation of due process. I mean, they've done everything under the book. And I've explained this to people, but as you can see, even just with Ed talking for 30 minutes, that can just go right past you. If you've never been introduced to law language, and that's where we're at. We're going to have to kind of just step up to the plate a little bit and just kind of hey, you strike out a couple of times. Oh well, you got to keep batting. You miss your shots. You got to keep shooting. And at some point, we're going to come together. We're going to figure this out, and we're going to start a movement. Which, I mean, it's already happening. But the more that we come together and unite and realize that, hey, you know what? If you want to do something productive, think about something good for somebody else. Think about somebody else being successful. Think about another person getting their kids back. Think about, someone that you dislike. Think about them being successful. Think about them overcoming their obstacles in life. And when you do that, you're putting that energy back into the universe to be used, because it's going to come back to you regardless. But using that love, using your love for others, using your imaginative power within, Dang, that's a nice ass person body right there. Professor Spira, goddamn. Woo, shit, I haven't taken my shirt off like that for a minute.
That's from people watching. That's for Eric Day celebration 2019. Yeah. Johnny put the crew through a serious workout. Johnny and Dylan did a whole workout, yoga, no weights needed. This was all pull-ups on the trees and using the child jungle gyms for stuff. And frontward bear crawl, backward bear crawl. And this was funny because then right in the midst of this, we had the ice cream, just looking at us like we are just just total foreigners, which we are for them.
Yeah, that's too funny.
But that's
too funny.
But this is we have to, like Brother Air said, we're done being uncomfortable in order just to make other people feel good. Just to like, oh, don't just like, no, we're gonna be comfortable where we go, what we want to do, and that's it. And so this is our world and our reality. And that sort of pussyfooting around, like trying to be fit in and be quiet and that kind of stuff, like it's over for that. Because we see the fruits of the rotten fruits, the decaying pus of their system and their situation. And you can try to put a bow on it and dress it up and say, oh, it works. The system works. And this is like, no, this thing is rotten at its core, and we can do better. And so we can do a lot better. And so that's that. But to get to that, as we say, always come back to physiological freedom. Continue to work on yourself physiologically, getting yourself together, getting your diet together. That's the foundation. That's the first and foremost. And once you start putting that into perspective, then the education, all these things, it's gonna come, and you're gonna be a lot more clearer and with a supple mind to be able to understand these things and be able to maintain your position, protect your position of freedom.
On that topic right there, that reminded me of a conversation I overheard with an individual who was telling another individual that he needed to stockpile on food because the shit's gonna hit the fan soon, and if you didn't have a supply of food and water, you were gonna die, et cetera, et cetera. But then a light bulb turned on right there, and I want to share this. Everybody needs to start learning and practicing fasting a little bit more, okay? Because we're all under this illusion that we need food to survive. And remember, the mind is very powerful. So if you believe that wholeheartedly, you're going to be kind of freaked out if you don't eat for 12 hours or you don't eat for a day. And so you have to break through that illusion and realize that your body it's not dependent on food. V equals P minus O is not a formula it's not a formula that was just thrown out there just for the hell of it. Eric had shown that, if you want more vitality in your life, you got to remove the obstructions in the body first. That's going to give you more life. So what comes with removing obstructions means eating less, fasting, and assisting the body to eliminate. So if you really want to do justice for yourself in your own health and your own your own life, practice fasting a little bit more. Eat less, go longer periods without eating, and realize that we could really survive for a long period of time. And if you're not familiar with the last video with Brother Air, he went a whole year without eating food. Think about that, a whole year, 29 days without eating or drinking, 29 or 30 days without eating or drinking. Okay, that is, you go and you tell that to a room full of people, they're not going to believe it. It's not going to be. It's not their mind won't allow it to be accepted as correct information. But at a time where we're at right now, where when the dollar collapses, when if and when shit continues to pursue and how things have been, you got to be prepared. And the best way you can prepare yourself is learning how to do have the simplicity of life. You don't need a lot of money. You don't need to have, all the cool gadgets and whatnot, but you got to be able to be by yourself, and you got to be able to fast, and you got to be able to be optimistic about, knowing who you are and what powers you really have within your own vessel. So I just want to throw that little 2 cents into there, because I know that that's a topic that a lot of people maybe don't hear that too often.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, and we're going to be talking more about that in these future podcasts, continue to really get into the survivalist mentality. And because this is nothing new. I mean, I'm now telling, there's a video I made years ago, the emergency car kit.
The emergency car
and blog posts, and people just think like, and a lot of people don't know it exists, but then they look at it and they're like, wait a minute, this applies to more than just what I should put into my vehicle if something goes down. Like, there's a survival things in here. And my thing was always kind of, there's people that dedicate their lives and have whole YouTube things and and that. And so I was but then when I realized like so few people in the community had even heard about any of these things, just basic survival stuff, basic making sure that you have your first aid kits, have some backup, some freeze dried vegan food and fruit and dried fruits and that kind of stuff, water and things, emergency water, or some type of way to get water, or how to distill it out in the woods, and how to build a fire. Like, these are just basic stuff everybody should know. But I know they don't. I had the benefit of learning these things when I was a child, because I was in Boy Scouts, and we learn a lot of this stuff, and you're taught by military people and folks that's out there, that kind of thing. But that's the survivalist mindset is something that, and the survivalist mucus-free mindset is something that I really encourage people to investigate and get into and learn to understand, because this is only going to continue to get real. Like last year, I predicted the riots in April. I said there was going to be riots probably around June, and they happened the last couple days in May. So I was a couple days off, but it's like, and the whole thing is, we study history, and you can see these things coming. And because they generally, like right now, if you really want to know what they're going to try to do here, is study what's happening in Southern Australia. It's not hard. It's not hard. Yeah, they're not telling you nothing about anything that's going on over there on your mainstream media sources, or these things that are masquerading, that are really mainstream media, but they're masquerading like they're independent and that kind of stuff. Like, no, there's a reason that you're not hearing about the uprisings in Italy and France and all over the world. There is resistance that is happening, and in New York and in different places there's resistance. Dave did a blackout on all of that. Maybe they're talking a little bit about here and there. There's some people that are refusing to go to work. They're going on strike. They talked a little bit about that, but that's it. But when worldwide, there is resistance to these totalitarian mandates and nonsense that they're putting out here, and so that's a good thing. But if you want to see where things are going, look up, Canada, nonsense going down there, Australia, a number of other places, and you can see what they what they want to bring here. You know, check out China. You can see what they are preparing for. You know, the social credit scores, you know, all that kind of stuff. You know, and so, but it's our responsibility to, as a citizen of the world, to be aware, of these things. And for me, because then there's some folks that come out and that say, well, opening yourself up to all of the nastiness of the world, it's ruins your spiritualism and that kind of stuff. I beg to differ. I think that the realest people, if you want to be real and you aspire to be a spiritual master, then you look at every nasty stank thing in this world straight in the eye, and you can float right over it. But you're not ignoring it. You know it's there, but you keep moving. You know,
if I could add something to that real quick, that perspective is right on point, and I'll just add something personally. What I like to do is, let's say I do hear something that is, you get bad news, or you hear about the wrong or the bad that's happening in the world. All I do in my own imagination is, well, I see that getting better. I see that improving. I see that, you know, we're finding a remedy to resolve this, and that's it. I let it go. So, I mean, you know, you're absolutely right, where, you know, you could get to levels where you approach these negative, you know, situations of whatever it is, and you can be above it, you know, without even really doing anything. You know, I know there's that dogma where, you know, if you're around negativity, that's going to be a part of you, or you could rise above that still. But
one of the best examples of that that I know of is, you know, when me and you know Brother Air, but I've been with him and done this, where we go out, play music on the streets at food festivals. And we used to play at the Chicago food, whatever they call that, the Chicago big food festival up there. And so it is the seat of gluttony. There's just, everybody's eating and going crazy. Fights are breaking out. I mean, it's just pure insanity. We're fasting while playing music, and we check for this little circle and little orb around us, this little audio bubble. We control that reality, and none of the nonsense, like it's touching us. It's like all this stuff just sort of goes around, and then the like a pure vibration, you know, it brings people in that get attracted, and they know that the vibe, like, this is different. The vibe is different. We're cutting right through all the negativity, all of the nastiness, all of that stuff, and not, you know, and being a catalyst. You know, you change the realm around you. You're not changed by it. That's what we should aspire to be, as catalysts, to because that's what in actuality, that's when people want to change others, or they want to try to influence others, that has to be understood, the mechanics of that.
Yeah.
Because by you changing yourself internally, people can't help but change that's in your sphere, that comes in contact with you, that's in your jurisdiction. They can't help it. That's a science that folks in the future, maybe us, but, you know, there's in some generations in the future, they will be able to break that science down. Right now, it's just, you know, how to win friends and influence people, sort of psycho, you know, kind of babble kind of stuff. But that's real. And there's a real science behind that.
Yes, there is.
And so, yeah.
Yes, there is. In your survival code, what about what about if you get thirsty? Can you drink your own urine?
Not mine, not in my code. I'm sure we got some urine survivors here and watching, and we appreciate you watching. But yeah,
the elixir of life.
yeah, I'm not on that. We're not on that train. You know, as Arnold Era points out quite clearly, when you start detoxing, you start really Like if you're eating the way you're supposed to be eating and you're eliminating the waste see, most people don't eliminate. They're not
That's
filtering.
right.
They're
That's
not
exactly
eliminating.
right.
So their, you know, their urine is clear as water. And so, yeah, I guess you could drink that. And it's not really, there's no sediment in there. There's no, I mean, you know, it's like some of us, our urine is so, like, we filter so well, you'd be chewing your urine, like, you would be chewing like
some applesauce urine.
like some applesauce, you know. I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's not, yeah, that's not how we're gonna get our water. And yeah.
That's funny.
So I really appreciate you being on here. You have any last thoughts for the audience here? You know, we had a lot of great people tuning in. I really appreciate everybody that tuned in and took the time, and definitely share this video with others. This is gonna be up. If for some reason YouTube yanks it down, I got a copy of it. We're gonna put it other places. We'll have it up. You know, we'll have it on mucusfreelife.com. We're gonna have it available. So for future audiences that want to go back, look at some of the research that Ed has, and you look all that stuff up yourself, and just and then I know with like Kuka, there's a couple other folks that have a background in this. Bring everybody together. You know, I want to put I'll shoot Kuka's information to Johnny and you guys.
Yeah, she was in the comments. She was in the comment section, and she was getting pretty hyped up in there, man. I was like, dang, she's ready for battle right now.
Yeah, I mean, well, this is what she does. She's
like, put me in the call right now.
Yeah,
let's get on the video.
right. You know, and so, but that's
good though.
Yeah. This is like you said, this is at war. So we need all the help that we can get on all fronts.
Absolutely.
On all these fronts.
The last thing that I'll probably leave with is in my area, you know, as I said, there's not a lot of vegans, so you're not going to have a lot of individuals who are going to get the diet and the lifestyle, and that's okay. But this is important to get for everybody. We all have God-given rights that it's called life. Okay, we can live and do what we want, think what we want, pursue what we want, as long as we don't harm others, okay? When you have kids, that becomes your extension. You are their caregiver, and you're there to nourish them until they become of age. What you choose to do with your kids, that is your decision. Nobody has authority to decide what you do. So when you have individuals who are trying to determine this is correct, no, this is right, no, this is wrong. No, it doesn't matter. If you don't agree with someone on how they raise their kids, then that's okay. Keep it to yourself. But when you start to go and attack and pursue others based off of their beliefs, based off their religious beliefs, based off their nutritional beliefs, that's where you cross the line. And that's the part I want to emphasize. So those that have been supporting me throughout this whole year, I greatly appreciate you. I really do. And those that have been on the other side of the fence and have accused me and have threatened me and have sent me death threats and have, you know, said what they've, you know, spread rumors, it was water under the bridge. I've already forgiven you. But think about the karma that you put out in the universe. That's going to come back to you. So everything that you did to try to attack another person, that's going to come back to you sooner or later. So just be mindful of that. So, you know, my little baby right now, he's being taken care of. You know, even though right now they're giving him puree meat and they're giving him all of these medications, he's going to be fine. Once I get him back and he cleans up his nutrition and we get him off the meds, he's going to bounce right back. And at some point we'll have a video where he comes on and you're going to see the progress, and it's going to be a beautiful thing. But until then, we're just going to keep riding the wave. We're going to keep fighting. We're going to go round by round. And I can tell you this much, you know, if the only way that I'm going to be defeated is if I die in this physical vessel. That's it. There's no other option. And that right there is, you know, I'll take that to the grave and pursue it as I have been this whole time. And, you know, again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in and for being a part of this. You know, my Instagram is Upside Down Consciousness. Johnny Gonzalez on Facebook. Professor Spira, thank you very much for having me and allowing me to share. And that little monster, little Journey Poopy Pants, he's coming home soon. He's coming home soon.
Definitely. And so I really appreciate you coming on. You know, I'm happy, very privileged to share my platform to get this information out as far and wide as possible. And, you know, I asked some members of the community to share this information with others, put this out here, because this is an epidemic. This is a incredibly serious problem that is affecting far too many people. And this is part of the larger legacy of slavery that is just morphed and changed. And so we have to understand that, and we have to fight for our freedom, fight for the freedom of our families, our friends,
Amen.
our children. And,
Amen.
and it starts right now, right here. So definitely, you know, all love to you, man. And you know, we're gonna get this done. You know, definitely get Journey back, and I want you back. Yeah, just come right on back onto the program when you get Journey back, and we're gonna, you know, that's gonna be a beautiful day.
And one last thing for Brother Air, clean that ass, baby. Get your enemas in. Get your enemas in. You got to realize those enemas, for anybody that's dealing with any mental issues or mental problems, or you know, angry, sad, emotional, get an enema in you. Fast for a day. I know we're talking about, you know, medical kidnapping, but you got to go back to the diet. You got to clean out the body. You got to allow the body to eliminate. That way, you know, you empty the cup, then you could add more to the cup, and hopefully you'll be adding more productive and beneficial things to your vessel.
Yeah, and that was an important point that you made, where, because although all of this stress and these things that you're going through, and you talking about like death threats are coming, like all that stuff you're going through, you didn't deviate from the diet. You didn't go off and like, okay, I'm stressed out, now I'm gonna go just go crazy, and like, no, you stuck to the principles. And that's key, because a lot of folks is, you know, they start going through the stress and things like that, and then the eating goes out the window. And so that's something I definitely want folks to pay attention to, that, you know, take that lesson. And this has been a great episode. I'm looking forward to having you back on with Journey.
Yeah.
Soon.
Okay. All right, brother.
So, all right, man. Thank you so much.
Much love to you guys. Thank you.
All right. Peace. So, wow, that was a very serious episode. So I really appreciate everybody. Wonderful comments in the comment section. A lot of support and love for Johnny. Again, you can check him out at his, I'll post his, bring that up. I'll post his Instagram again, upside_consciousness. And you know, follow him, check him out because if anything happens where he's communicating or anything like that, you can sort of follow what's going on with him there. I want to continue to talk about this issue and this topic, so I think we're going to have some more guests on to just keep going down this, because with the, like I was talking about, I'm forced vaccinations, the children being taken away for all sorts of things. I mean, people are starting to see it now because they're being forced to look at it, but there's nothing new. Nothing new is going on. This is the same stuff that's been going on for hundreds of years in this corporation acting as a society. And so educating ourselves, understanding that we have to be the ones to emancipate ourselves and move forward. And so I hope to add my voice to that and allow others to use this platform to add their voice to that end, and all of becoming free, physiological freedom on all levels. And one last time, I invite you, if you're not enrolled yet into the webinar I'm doing next Tuesday, Burn Fat and Create Godlike Immunity, Eating Mucus-free in the COVID era. Click the link that I'm sharing right now in the chat, and we will have a good time there, because again, we're going to be giving you the tools that you need to get on this path. If you're new to this channel and what we're talking about, Mucusless Diet Healing System, eating mucus-free, I'm going to cover all of that in this, as well as what's going on with this COVID dynamic, all this kind of stuff, why you really want to, well, I won't even give it away. Just come and join us, and you will definitely not be sorry. We're going to get into some serious stuff there. So again, I thank you all so much for being here. This really, means a lot to me. I know it means a lot to Johnny and Jackie, that you got a community behind them supporting. And so sending a lot of love and beautiful energy in their direction, a lot of love and beautiful energy in your direction. And until next time, peace, love, and breath.